Music accompanies the path of the human metronome, the prodigious pianist Kuzi Arima. But after the passing of his mother, Saki Arima, Kuzi falls into a downward spiral, rendering him unable to hear the sound of his own piano. 2 years later, Kuzi still avoids the piano, leaving behind his admirers and rivals, and lives a colorless life alongside his friends Tsubaki Soabe and Ryuta Watari. However, everything changes when he meets a beautiful violinist, Kori Miyazono, who stirs up his world and sets him on a journey to face music again. Moonlight April approaches the story of Kuzi's recovery as he discovers that music is more than playing each note perfectly, and a single melody can bring in the fresh spring air of April. Our story starts with some glimpses out of our protagonist's life. A girl with a violin case was on her way to school when she saw a stray cat. The happy-go-lucky girl was full of life and decided to chase the cat to give it some treats. She finally got to the cat and offered her adoration. Meanwhile, our other protagonist, a guy in his junior years, was seen performing in a piano competition. Kuzi was a prodigy in the music world with exceptional abilities and otherworldly composition that entrances his audiences in a world of music, trapping them with the melodious and graceful work of his fingers on the piano. Another girl named Tsubaki, who was Kuzi's neighbor and childhood friend, was also entrapped in his playing, making him the only person she could see at the moment. Then happens a time skip of a few years, which shows Kuzi, who was now a middle school student. He was working in the music room of his school, trying to play the piano with some music playing in his ears. His other friend, Watari, along with Tsubaki, were playing baseball on the school ground when a ball Tsubaki hit crashed through the music room window, hitting an unsuspecting Kuzi out of nowhere. Tsubaki went to retrieve the ball when she saw him lying on the ground in his own puddle of blood. She was scared, thinking it was a corpse, and tried to run away with the ball, but stopped when she heard Kuzi's voice. She was relieved to know that it was Kuzi who was hurt, and no one else because of the repercussions she would have to face otherwise. Judging by a near nonchalant expression of Kuzi, it was guessed that breaking windows and hurting him in the process was not something new he had to face at the hands of Tsubaki. He reprimanded her for doing that again while trying to pick up the glass shards with his hands, causing Tsubaki to approach and stop him. She told him that he could get hurt by doing that, but Kuzi did not care if he got hurt. At that moment, Watari came and took a picture of them holding hands and teased them by saying how their childhood friendship had blossomed into conjugal love, making them a lovely pair of husband and wife. Kuzi and Tsubaki both cringed and opposed his teasing. After getting a thorough scolding session from their principal, they were fortunately let off without possibly suspension. Watari asked Kuzi, who was wrongly scolded because of Tsubaki and had to write an apology letter, if he felt annoyed by it now. Kuzi said that he had to babysit Tsubaki since their childhood, so it was like second nature to him to face the shit Tsubaki throws at him. Besides, he was an only child, making her sort of a high-maintenance older sister to him. Watari said that he was a nice guy and went off when he got a message from a girl. Tsubaki complained that Watari was going to meet yet another girl. She did not get what girls saw in his Playboy ones. She'd asked Kuzi if he had a crush on someone he liked. He said that he did not have anyone like that. She told him that one of her friends said that the whole world seems colorful when a person is in love. He in return said with a solemn look in his eyes that nobody would fall in love with him, making Tsubaki angry. She told him that he was a young guy and it was not okay to have such dimmed eyes when it should be all lighted up with hopes and dreams. She told him to be more cheerful and see the world with more color in his eyes, with the shimmer and sparkle that lights up when a person finds a piece of happiness. He saw her trying to cheer him up and saw her brightened, hopeful eyes. He told her that the world must be so beautiful through her eyes if only it was the same for him. For him, the whole world was of the same monotone, just like the piano. She asked when his father was coming, and she said that there was still a month or two left before he could finish his work. He told her not to worry as he was used to living alone. Besides, Tsubaki and her family were near him to call any time in need. He went inside his house and greeted his mother's shrine. The next day, Kuzi was writing some music notes, sitting in the classroom when Tsubaki came and told him to enjoy his youth. She told him to come with her, and Watari, as a girl, wanted Tsubaki to introduce her to Wahari. She would get all alone, and the girl knew classical music, making an opportunity for him to enjoy himself as well. He told her that he had stopped playing the piano 3 years ago. She said that he was playing the piano the other day, but it was only for his part-time work, rendering some music into notes. She told him that he was desperately trying to hold on to it despite his blatant avoidance of the piano. She told him that he was much cooler when he used to play the piano. Kuzi's mother wanted to raise him as the best pianist of the world. He learned everything about the piano from his mother, who was sick and ran a music school. He practiced day and night for hours after hours under his mother's scrutinized guidance. She used to scold him and hit him even for the slightest of mistakes. She wanted to enter into a European competition, taking her place. At the age of 11, when Kuzi was soon to participate in the European competition, his mother passed away, rendering him unable to play the piano anymore. He botched the competition and since then lived a life without playing the piano. He thought about how Tsubaki was saying the truth and he was desperately trying to hold onto the piano because he knew nothing else other than it. He was empty without the piano and did not know what to do. Tsubaki, who always waited in her room, hoping for Kuzi to play again, went to sleep after another failed day. The next day was the day for their planned meet, and he waited for everyone to come near the playground. He saw a pair of shoes and leggings on a tree and heard a melodious tune being played. He was drawn towards the sound and saw a girl standing on top of the playground surrounded by kids and playing the melodica with bare feet. Kuzi was transfixed by her playing and saw her playing with the kids together. He wanted to take a photo, but a gush of air came out of nowhere, making the girl think that he was a pervert, and she attacked him with the said melodica. Soon Watari and Tsubaki came and told an endangered Kuzi that she was the girl who they came to meet today. The girl Kori happily greeted Watari, totally opposite of her characteristics with Kuzi just a minute ago. She threatened him to keep his mouth shut about the previous events and went to talk with Watari. Kori told them that she was a violinist and had a performance in the town hall. She told them to come with her. Kuzi refused at first, but couldn't stay after Kori took him in like the first breeze of spring, breaking his hard walls. Kuzi could not stop the flow of the wind that came in the form of Kori and swept him away on his feet. They all entered the hall and got alert after seeing the professional and serious air all around. For Kuzi, nothing about this was new. Rather, he grew up in this sort of ambience of sheer competition and profoundness. It was his workplace, in the words of his late mother, but that was all in the past. The 3 years he spent away from such places had created an air of force around him, which made him suffocated now that he was standing in his familiar yet former place of work. The whispering and the people were making him nervous and gave him some intense flashbacks. As they approached the auditorium, more and more people recognized the prodigal musician and internationally acclaimed pianist who had fallen from grace and had left. They were talking about him, but he did not say anything and sat with his friends. They waited for Kori's turn while Kuzi told them all about the performance and their nuances through his expert ears and skills. Finally came the turn of Kori, who entered the stage with immense confidence, wanting her music to reach the audience. As soon as she started, everybody went still with the sudden blow of freshness that hit them with her tune. Even Kuzi himself was surprised at her composition and playing. She was playing the same piece as the other contestants, but this composition was not Beethoven's anymore. It was her own. She had broken almost every rule to create the masterpiece, which now entranced the audience and Kuzi himself. All he could see and hear was that she was beautiful. The judges were impressed, and some were aggravated, but the audience's cheers filled the whole auditorium. Tsubaki asked him if she would win, but he knew that she would not win with the little stunt she pulled. Nonetheless, everyone was talking about her. They waited for Kori outside, and Kuzi saw how 2 little girls happily gave Kori flowers. It was like a scene coming out of a movie where everybody's attention was on Kori. He wanted to approach her, but stopped after seeing Watari going to her. He reminded himself that she liked Watari and he should not meddle, but Kori came to him and asked how did he like her performance. He told her that her performance had created an extraordinary memory for the 2 girls who had gifted her flowers, as it was great. Kori did not wait for the results as she did not care about it, and left with them. Kuzi was troubled in his head because he could not get the image of Kori performing from his mind. Watari asked him if he was thinking about some girl he liked and even took the name of Kori. Kuzi denied, saying that Kori is out of the syllabus since she liked Watari. Watari said that it did not matter and was quite normal for a girl he liked liking someone else. That's what makes life interesting, and they might never know what changes a person's heart. He said that he was going to ditch practice and go home with the girl. Kuzi met Kori on his way. She told him that she was waiting for Watari. Kuzi did not want to hurt her feelings by telling her about his whims and lied about him being at practice. She wanted to go check on him at practice, but Kuzi tried to stop her. She resigned and told him that Kuzi will be Watari's replacement today, stopping him in his tracks. Kuzi seemed to fall particularly weak in front of Kori's sheer determination and vivaciousness. A girl so full of life and happiness, just like the impending spring, he could not turn her down, and went to a cafe together. She was happily munching down sweets, leaving Kuzi to wonder how such an amazing musician can turn into a child in front of food. It was endearing to him how she was so in tune with her life and enjoys things fully without any heavy burden sitting on her heart. A little girl was playing the piano in the cafe and making Kori happy. She told him that the piano was very happy as the girl was playing it so beautifully, but Kuzi had a solemn look on his face. He told her that it was not true and sat still. Meanwhile, Kori did not agree with him and went to the little girl. She'd asked her questions about her music, which the girl enthusiastically answered. She told her that she was learning Mozart, but was not able to play it perfectly yet. She told the girl that Kusi, sitting there, was great at playing the piano and he could help her play. Kusi was totally baffled after hearing her proposition but could not refuse, seeing the little girl so ecstatic to play with him. He started playing with the girl, a tune so familiar to him by Mozart. He started off slow at first, but as he gradually focused on his playing, he paced up and played like the prodigy that he truly was, putting everyone in the cafe in awe. Kusi was starting to find the happiness he felt whenever he used to play the piano, but as he got more focused into his playing, something struck in his mind, rendering him unable to hear his own fingers playing the piano with expertise. Though it had no effect on his playing, not being able to connect with his own playing and not being able to hear it was not something Kusi could work with. He stopped suddenly, making him pale, and got out of there after apologizing. He asked Corey how did she know that he played the piano. She told him that he was the prodigy of their time, the youngest person to ever win the prestigious competition, a true player of monotone with perfect pitch. Every musician of this generation knows him and respects his amazing skills, and they looked up to him. She'd asked him why he had stopped playing when he was at the peak of his music. He told her that he was unable to hear his own playing anymore. He could hear it at first, but as soon as he gets immersed in his playing and focus on it, the music starts to deviate away from him. He can still hear others playing, but it's his own music that keeps hiding away. It was his divine punishment. Corey got angry hearing his negative comments and pessimistic attitude. She get in and told him that if he can't play with his fingers, then he should use his legs, nose, or a stick. Anything but nothing should ever be able to make him stop playing because it's the only thing which keeps them truly alive and going on. He told her that it may be the case for her, but he does not know about himself. She told him that she was chosen in the competition to perform with audience vote and needs an accompanist. She told him that he was going to be her accompanist from now on, which Kusi refused, but she said that she had made up her mind and told him to stop his whining. Admitting his own fate, she was like the spring wave sweeping him off his feet once again. She started chasing him to convince, and he, on the other hand, tried his best to run away from her. She told Tsubaki about her plan, and she became excited. She helped Corey to plant music sheets in his books, lockers, and the music room. She even plastered music notes all over his house and windows just to convince him to cave in. Corey asked Tsubaki if she also wants him to play the piano again. She said that as long as they put a little pressure on him, he would certainly agree, and she does want him to play the piano. She knew him from her childhood and felt that he was stuck in time. It actually did not matter to her if he played the piano or not as long as he quits on his own terms. But right now, he was running away from something he truly loved. He was stuck in a time loop, and he needs to come out of that loop to live his life freely without any regret. She would make sure that he comes out happy. The day of the competition was here, but Kusi was still hiding from them. Corey found him on the roof and told him to come. He said that he can't play, but Corey said that it's not that he can't play, but he won't. It did not matter that. He could not hear his playing, but he still can play. He told her that when he plays, he feels like he is trapped in the deep sea alone without any sound, and he feels alone. She told him that he was not alone as she was here with him. She would be there with him so that he doesn't feel alone. She cried and requested him to come with her and play. He finally agreed and told her that he would be her accompanist. Watari and Tsubaki came, and they decided to take them both to the hall. Kusi learned everything under his mother's strict and surplus guidance. He had to practice playing for a long time and learn the music sheets by heart. She always told him to read the sheets so much that at the end of it, he would not need the sheets at all. It was all engraved in his mind. According to her, everything he needed was in the music sheet itself. Everybody idolized him, talked about him, and even his injuries did not go unnoticed by many. They talked about him having music sheets being plastered on his glasses, and it did not but hide his injuries too. But he knew that his mother only had him on her side, and she wanted him to achieve the grandeur she herself couldn't get. Watari and Tsubaki found 2 bikes and took them to the hall for their performance. Tsubaki asked Corey if they would be fine as they had not practiced together at all. She said that they would manage somehow as they were the best. Kusi was reading the sheets and did not know how he would be able to perform. All his life, he had studied the sheets until all the music notes were engraved in his mind. During his performances, he did not need the sheets at all, but this was different. He had not practiced at all. He had no prior experience to be an accompanist. He was frantically looking at the sheets, trying to use his mother's teachings and ways he had always followed. It was all new to him to learn a composition just before his performance when he was used to performing a single note for over 100 times. Corey not ready for the performance and asked him how she looked, but he could not give his attention to anything but the music notes. She turned his face up and head-butted him to gain some of his attention, which was now fully on her. She told him to look up at her. He was used to always looking down, which forced him to get trapped in the cage of music scores. He might think that he was out of practice, but he was a natural, and he had heard the music notes all the time during his lunch breaks, and these past days all he could see was music notes. She knew that he could do it. She told him that they can both do it together. He felt confident after hearing her words, and together they finally entered the stage. The audience was surprised to see a middle school kid as an accompanist. They started to recognize him as the famous child prodigy pianist Kusi, and the whole auditorium filled with excited whispers about their performance. Kusi, who had the music sheet in front of him, tried to calm his nerves. Corey started her performance slowly with consideration to Kusi, who needed time to get started. But the pace did not sit slow as Corey decided to adopt her own style and play without any rules and regards, like the free spirit she is. Kusi had started playing too, but it was growing difficult for him to match his tune with Corey, and soon he started hallucinating. The notes started to disappear in front of him, leaving him unable to hear his piano. He felt like he was underwater, alone and messed up. He was forcibly pressing his fingers on the piano to try and hear the sounds, but it only deteriorated his playing. The audience was shocked to hear him play so bad, whereas Corey was doing great, but it was affecting the whole performance. She abruptly stopped performing and looked at him with soft, empowering eyes, which told him that he can do it. He remembered her words and looked at her rather than searching for the notes. She told him to start playing again, and this time he remembered one of the earliest memories of his mother teaching him piano. She always told him to glide her fingers along to make the piano smile, and he did just that. He was still off on some notes, and his inexperience as an accompanist was also noticed, but still, they finished the performance together, entrancing everyone with their duo performance. They could see the fraction of the prodigy that Kusi was, and the whole auditorium burst with clappings for Corey and him. But at the end of it, Corey suddenly collapses on the stage, frightening Kusi. There was an early memory of his childhood in Kusi's mind. Tsubaki, who was always with him, wanted to play more with him, but he was scared that his mother would scold him. However, Tsubaki told him to enjoy himself and jumped from the bridge into the river along with him. He was terrified because he did not know how to swim, but when Tsubaki found him, he burst out laughing, saying that it was very fun. They took Corey to the hospital immediately, and after the doctor checked on to see if she was fine and went inside to meet her. Kusi asked her if it was the first time she had fainted like this. She told him that it was the first time and it was nothing major because she had always been a bit anemic. Kusi was blaming himself for ruining her chances in the competition and getting disqualified. He knew that he had messed up a lot during the performance, and she even had to start again because of him. It was all his fault, and he was feeling even more guilt that Corey did not say anything reproachful to him at all. She did not blame him. Before he left with a heavy heart, Corey stopped him and said that he played well today. He always said that he could not play, but seeing him play today was something that left a deep mark in her mind. She said that the piano was a part of him, and when he played the piano, it became his everything. She asked him the question if he would be able to forget it. He did not answer, but the question ran in his mind constantly. He thought if there was nothing in him beside his ability to play the piano. The next day, Wahari asked Kusi to come with him to the hospital as Corey was getting discharged today, and she would be surprised to see them. Kusi told him that the one leaned in was Wahari, and the only reason she chose him was that she needed an accompanist. He refused to go, but Watari understood his true feelings and told him not to hold it in his heart. Hearing Watari say so, he thought about the performance, how she was like the light that did not let him give up. She made sure that he was alone with her all the time, even with her back against him. He was not the one who helped her, rather Corey was the one who actually helped him. Tsubaki was going home with her friend when she told her that Tsubaki was not herself for the past 2 days. She had a cloudy look in her eyes. Tsubaki did not say anything, but the scene that played in her mind was the day of the performance when she saw Corey and Kusi looking at each other like there was nobody in the auditorium beside them. They were interrupted by their former basketball captain, and now a high schooler, Sato. She thought to herself that Sato was reliable, hot, and a dependable man unlike Kusi. Sato told her that he liked her, which should have made her happy, but she did not feel happy at all. The only thing that was running on her mind was the look Kusi had on his face while looking at Corey. Corey was let off from the hospital, and Kusi wanted to go meet her with a sandwich, but in the end he could not approach her at school. But like the impending April, he met Corey on his way back home. Corey was specially waiting for him, which she did not care to admit, and asked him for a welcome gift. He told her that he had nothing for her, making her cry. She guilt-trapped him, saying that it was because of him she was disqualified, and he didn't even have a gift for her. He told her that he would do anything she wanted him to, and she successfully got things her way. She told him to participate in a piano contest, but he told her that it was not possible. She told him that he played well during the competition, and he could do it again. Even if things might get tough for him, but if he grits his teeth and tries his best, he could do it. He told her that he was a bad musician who had thrown away all his precious music sheets. Corey said that it was the story of every musician who creates music, and at the end of the day, they sit up in front of those same sheets and create the most beautiful lie of all. He couldn't help but notice her aura sparkle, and every word she spoke had a dazzle on them, which made him close his eyes. But he couldn't help but aspire to be like her. She jumped into the river, which reminded him of when his music reached the audience. He can't forget it because he is a musician and jumped with her into the river too. After jumping into the river and getting drenched, Corey and Kusi both went to his house to dry up. That's when Corey saw the piano room in his house. The room was filled with trophies and awards lying around in boxes, collecting dust along with his piano, which was basically hidden under the pile of dust and books. A careful yet clumsy attempt at burying his past. She could not stop herself after seeing the mess and threw away the books from the piano and cleaned the piano. She told sorry to it over and over again, conveying her emotions, and finally unleashed herself onto Kusi, who was responsible for the piano's pitiful plight. She told him that this ends from now onwards, as he was going to start his journey with the piano again. She opened the window in his room only to meet Tsubaki, who totally misunderstood the situation. Even after knowing the truth, Tsubaki could not shake off the feelings she felt. She was pissed off at both of them being together so often, but she still supported Kusi and Corey's attempt to salvage his music career once again and wanted to help. With everybody's support and Corey's strict determination, he was about to start playing again. But hearing his piano playing from the performance, he was devastated because he was out of sync and tune, totally opposite of his perfect monotone. Corey told him that it did not matter if he could not hear most of his playing, but he could still perfect his performance with enough practice once again. She had already filled in his attendance in a national-level piano competition. Kusi started his practice with sheer determination in his mind. Meanwhile, Tsubaki could not shake off her discomfort. He started to work really hard, just like his old days, making Tsubaki worried. She told Corey that she liked the fact that Kusi was back to playing the piano, but he was also suffering a lot. Corey told her that he had immense pain and sufferings inside of him. This pain and sufferings were coming out as his music, as it was a staple for all great musicians, to take their sufferings and create something sublime out of it. Kusi needed his pain to come out in order for him to get back on his line. Tsubaki heard everything that Corey said and asked her why she was trying so hard for Kusi. She gave Tsubaki the same answer that she had given her before. Kusi was like a hopeless little brother, and she wanted to see him happy. She wanted Tsubaki to see the happy Kusi too. Tsubaki went on her way home and called Sato, telling him that they should go out. Meanwhile, Corey went back to school where Kusi was still working on his music. She told him what Tsubaki had said and apologized, saying that she could not help him even though he was suffering a lot. She had told him things like grit his teeth, endure it, and play over and over again without regarding his pains and how hard it is to do all that. She cried telling all this, and he told her that his suffering was indeed necessary for him to face all that to emerge from the cage she had made for himself, and she was the force behind it, something that he thanked her for. The sports festival had started, and Tsubaki had a match on the first day. Kusi had perfected his notes and played with absolute monotone, but he felt that it was still not his piece yet. He needed to transcend perfection itself. Corey came to take him out to see Tsubaki's match. He stood near the fence and cheered Tsubaki, making her happy, but soon she saw Corey standing beside him, and all the thoughts that were suppressed in her mind came loose. She was the one who was always beside Kusi since the beginning, through his bad and good times while he suffered, but now it was Corey standing in her place. She did not like that Kusi looked at her like that. She wanted Kusi to look at her. Her own thoughts troubled her, and she ended up losing while getting hurt. Kusi knew that she was hurt and came to pick her up. He gave her a piggyback ride, and it opened up a beautiful memory for them when she had carried him on her back while he was hurt. She tried to hide her pain, but he told her to depend on him more, and he wanted her to see him in his old glory, wanted her to see that he was responsible too. She cried and leaned on him for support as the anger melted away from her. Kusi's participation in the competition had created a huge uproar in the music community, with some old rivals coming up, wanting to teach him a lesson for their old defeat at his hands. The competition was nearing, and along with it came the self-doubt and questionings. Kusi saw the black cat, a form of his own subconscious, who asked him questions. It told him that even though he had perfected his notes, it was still Chopin's piece, not his own. It asked him where he was in this whole composition. He might mess up and humiliate himself. People might make fun of him. But it did not matter because he was not Beethoven or Chopin. It asked him who he was and where he was. the prodigal pianist, Arima Kusi, who won all the competitions without even feeling the need to see his results, was always behind his mother's shadow, simply because he did not know who he was himself. After his mother passed away, the shadow he lived in suddenly got erased, but it left behind a great cage of memories and hallucinations of his dead, sickly mother. He was always practicing up to the point where he did not need the music sheet at all. He could play the whole piece perfectly with just his muscle memory itself. He collapsed during the physical education class due to his hectic work schedule and missing meals every now and then. Corey came to see him and he told her about the cat he had in his childhood. The black cat he had was named Chelsea. One day it scratched him badly, making his mother abandon it the next day. He saw his mother going away with the cat, but he couldn't stop her. That was the day he started to live in the shadow of his mother, not knowing anything else other than music. Corey told him that he was not just his mother's shadow. He was Arima Kusi, and he was just like every other person, with his own likes and dislikes. He did not have to force himself to learn or undo anything. He did not need to make Chopin his own, as he was Kusi and not Chopin. He just needed to play perfectly as he does now, without any worries. Hearing her calming words, he felt that the sun was shining bright upon him again, taking him out of his dark cage again. The day of the competition came soon, with his old competitors excited to meet him again. They always lost to him and were bothered by the fact that he wasn't interested in his wins nor in them. He did not look at them and left the competitions even before seeing the results, so sure of his success. But the reason behind it was just his disinterest. They wanted him to look at them seriously and regard them as his equal competitors. When Kuze saw them, he did not recognize them, pissing them off even more. The whole place was filled with talks about Kusi. Corey told them that the reason behind it was jealousy and judgment. They saw the prodigal Arima Kusi as someone who perfectly played every piece just as the creator of it intended to. He was the human monocore and a puppet slave of his mother's in all their eyes. The last year's winner, Isa, who was determined to make Kuzi look at him, was going to give his performance soon. Kuzi was feeling dreadful, sitting on the floor, waiting for his turn. He was scared, just like the day he had stopped playing. Isa was also scared because the day he was waiting for was finally here. Arima Kusi was his competition today, and he had to play by giving his all into his performance. Isa had come along in those 2 years while Kuzi was missing from the music world, but despite him being missing from the stage, the only driving force in Isa was Kusi himself. He wanted to reach him with his piano, make him finally see him. The number one Kusi, who did not have any interest in his rivals or in his results, was always seen with Isa and Igawa, but never looked at them the way Isa and Igawa saw him. He was always the winner in every competition, leaving them in second and third place, but Isa wanted to reach the same heights as him in order to make himself visible to Kusi. He was taught more by his obsession with surpassing Kusi than he learned from his teacher. He had won every competition after Kuzi left, but it was not a true victory for him because Kuzi was not there to see him. He wasn't there to compete with him, so all his victories were futile in his eyes. The first time he heard that Kuzi was back again after 2 years, he told his instructor that he would participate in this competition despite the fact that he was the previous year's winner and had the opportunity to compete in an international level competition, but his goals were never the international championship. It was always Kasi. Today was the day he was going to reach Kusi with his piece. He started playing with perfect poise and tone. Music was in the most sincere form for him. He played by his sheer will to turn it into a message for Kusi. Kusi and Igawa were standing together, watching Isa's performance with awe. When Isa was done, everybody in the auditorium was clapping. He went back in with shivering hands and found Kusi looking straight at him, saying that he was amazing. Isa was finally happy to hear that from the person he aspired to be, the person who had pushed him to be a pianist. It was soon the turn for Igawa to perform while the judges were talking about Isa and Igawa. Unlike Isa, she had been under the radar since Kuzi left, playing just how she wanted to without the need for a win. She was just moderate in their eyes. Igawa and Isa's teacher were talking to each other when Igawa's teacher told him how Igawa truly came to be a pianist. She was one of the people who saw Kuzi's first performance ever. She saw how nervous he was and how soulfully he played the piano. It was the first time music had reached so deep in her heart, making her cry out. He was the reason she started playing the piano, but soon the Kusei she knew evaporated into the air. He was turned into a mere shell of his existence. Everyone started calling him the human monocore, a puppet player. Despite all the wins he achieved, nothing was interesting to him, and one day he disappeared. These 2 years, Igawa's rival was not Isa because she did not see anyone else as her rival other than Kusi. She was sensitive, and it affected her performance very often, but there was something that she kept under her sleeve these 2 years because she didn't feel the need to show off her skills just yet. She got ready for her performance and entered the stage with a polished look of confidence and unparalleled glamour. She started playing off slow, which made the judges think that they were right about Egawa being just average, but finally, she took off her mask and played like no one had ever heard her playing before. This took the attention of everyone sitting and listening to her poised play. Aiza told Kusi that despite her rough words, she was a great admirer of him. Kusi and Aiza were also surprised to see the sudden change in her playing. Egawa played her anger and loneliness into her piece, trying to convey that this time she was going to be the one who rejects Kasi, a 14-year-old girl had taken the attention and turned it into awe in everyone's face with her performance. With her performance finally ending, the audience gave her a standing ovation that she gracefully accepted. Egawa was determined from the day she listened to Kuzi's performance that she wanted to be a great pianist who can inspire other people to be a pianist as well. She chose to abandon all the other possible future paths in order to pursue her goal to be a pianist. Today was the day she was determined to make Kuzi see her too, to see the girl who aspired to be like him. After ending her performance, she went and confronted Kusi, but in the end, she could not say anything to him and left. Kori went to the washroom for a while before Kuzi's performance, and that's when some girls saw her piles of medicine that she'd had with her. Kuzi's performance was nearing and Tsubaki was feeling anxious. Kori told her that even though Kuzi will be overstimulated after being on stage and things would surely play with his emotions, the audience and Kusi himself will not let him stop because he was a musician. It was time for him to face his demons. Kuzi had a reputation for always playing the most difficult piece in his performances, playing them with utter perfection that he got the name of human monochord. Both Aiza and Egawa had thought that he would choose a complicated piece to play today, but they were surprised to see that the composition was quite average in quality. Koru, who had chosen this piece for him, thought that it did not matter which piece he would play today because him being in the competition was far more important than anything else. Kusi was ready for his performance with a wavering heart, but he calmed himself and entered the stage only to meet with a pair of cat eyes which reminded him of his childhood. He stood still on the stage. The eyes asked him where he was going in his journey. From his childhood, Kusi had prioritized his mother's wishes against his own. Even though he wanted to play just like his friends do, he had no choice but to practice until he had perfected his music and often got beaten by his mother. He got out of his daydream and sat in the chair starting to play. As soon as he started playing, he could see his mother sitting in the auditorium with a sinister smile on her face. The memories started to hit him back again as he remembered how his mother had fallen ill and had to be admitted into the hospital. He used to visit the hospital every time he won a competition to make his mother feel good. His mother had told him that his wins were the best medicine for her, and he was determined that he would win every competition to make his mother feel better and make her happy. He was happy to know that his mother would come to see his performance after a long time and prepared to give his best, but despite playing really well, his mother was not satisfied and started to hit him, saying that his playing was not perfect according to the music sheets and criticized him. That's when Kuzi could not take it anymore and threw the music sheets at her, saying that he tried his best to make her happy and felt good. He always wanted her happiness and well-being, going out of his way to make that happen. He had left behind everything and had sacrificed his childhood, but she was still not happy. He told her that it would be better if she was dead, and it was the last thing he told his mother before she passed away. He tried to play again after that, but that's when the incident happened and he lost the ability to hear his notes again. During the performance, he was gradually losing his control over the notes and felt the notes and sounds drifting away, shocking everyone in the audience. Egawa learned that Kuzi had lost his ability to hear his own notes. Kuzi was trying his best to hear his own notes and played the piano like a man possessed. He was getting off his notes, and the whole performance was getting ruined. He tried his best to get out of the deep sea that had engulfed him, rendering him unable to hear his own music. He violently pressed the buttons, playing by his muscle memory to salvage the performance, but to no avail. The sounds that were coming out were not of the caliber of Kusi, who was known for his accuracy and perfection. People started to say that it was the drop of the prodigy. Aiza and Egawa were equally disturbed to see his plight. Then they admired and aspired to be like was breaking down in front of them. They desperately wanted the old Kuzi to come back. Otherwise, their own life was going to remain in the shadow of the old Kuzi Arima. Kuzi felt his mother saying to him that it was his punishment. The notes had left him. The piano that sang once in his caress was screaming at him, was all because he had abandoned his mother and her dreams. It was his divine punishment. He kept on pushing himself and slowed down his playing on the verge of stopping. He thought of Kori, who had approached him to play with her. He wanted to ask her why she had chosen him, why she didn't let him give up, and why did she play? Kori, who came as the spring breeze and hauled him up to enter the world he had abandoned 2 years ago. He wanted to know the reason why he played and what he was doing. He wanted to give up. He had given up a long time ago, but for some reason he could not give up now. He could see the remnants of his mother's sinister shadow whenever he tried to play, but he wanted to find the answer to the question he was asking himself for a long time. He suddenly stopped playing after this, marking his way to disqualification. No matter the quality of the performance, the contestants were not allowed to stop the performance midway. Egawa, Aiza, and Kori, all of them wanted the old Kuzi to come back, and they prayed for him to come back once again. That's when they saw the face of Kuzi, who was looking up towards the light. Kuzi had found the answer he was looking for. He was not playing for himself, nor was he playing for the whole audience. He was playing for only one person, and that was Kori. He remembered her words, everything she had told him all this while, every word of encouragement and dreams that lightened up her eyes. Her soft breath, glittery smile, and her never-ending hope were the only motivation he needed. He started playing again. This time the notes came out naturally to him, and he played with the softness and accuracy that was his signature mark. He played to convey his utmost emotions, the image he had painted in his mind, which reached everybody in the audience, making them sit still in their seats. Kori had tears flowing out of her eyes because Kuzi was finally back. The strong emotions his music emitted had totally baffled the audience, who had forgotten to clap after the performance ended. Their hearts were pounding with the resonance of his music, and they looked at Kuzi's face, who had no regrets in his eyes. He looked at his mother, whose color changed in his mind, turning her sinister image into a balloony smile. Kuzi looked at the audience, who were confused, but it did not matter to him because he only cared about one person at this point, and his whole performance was proof of it. He wanted her to know what he wanted to convey. After this, he went out, and one of the judges told him that this competition and stage is a garden for music, not a place where people come to find themselves. Kuzi did not retaliate because he was happy with the decision he had made today. Seto, one of the lead pianists and Kuzi's mother's friend, came to greet Kuzi and asked him how he was. She had seen Kuzi from his childhood to his rise in the world of music. She was the one who stood as a witness to his life unraveling, his whole journey under the guidance of his mother, who slowly, with time, put immense pressure on him, driving both Kuzi and her to the edge. She was always sorry about what had happened and felt guilty for not being by his side. She hugged him and asked which one of the girls he loved. He told her that it wasn't like that with either of them. She told him that his performance today was a direct message of love, a public declaration, and there was no doubt in it that he meant it. But Kuzi thought in his mind that it was just the deliverance of gratitude he felt towards Kori. But there was also a hidden hope in his heart that it might unravel something else for them both. Kuzi was about to leave the premises without seeing the result, but Seto told him to stay and wait for it. Aiza and Egawa both were selected for the next round, but Kuzi, as expected, was disqualified. Aiza, who regarded Kuzi as his hero, a hero who was made of stone and does not crumble under any pressure or force, was shocked to see his hero as a vulnerable human. It was hard for him to accept the truth. He faced him and asked him what was wrong with his performance. He told him that his performance was absolutely disastrous. He had changed his form over and over again, making it hard to grasp his old perfection. Kuzi accepted that his performance was actually a disaster, but he had worked very hard for it to the point that he passed out. But if playing imperfectly was something he could afford right now, then it was just his merit for the present. Nonetheless, it was him and his capability. He said that their journey was still going on. He was in the middle of his journey. He had accepted how he was at that moment and had decided to move on. After they all left the hall, Watari and Tsubaki were worried that Kuzi might be depressed because of his rare experience of defeat, but he seemed totally fine, at least on the outside. But in reality, he was also facing the downpour of his defeat in his heart. But this was also a rare thing for him because in the past, his results that came in wins did not matter to him at all. It was a new thing for him to be able to experience sadness for his defeat, and he decided to run to immerse himself in that feeling. City came the next day to check on him and proposed to teach him, which he accepted happily. Kori had a letter from the town hall for a gala concert, and she told Kuzi about it. She'd asked him if he wanted to go with her, and he agreed. After deciding what they were going to perform at the gala, they left together for home. Kori asked him about his experience entering the stage after a long time. He told her that he understood that people have many feelings inside them, and they play their music with these feelings inside of them, wanting to convey them. He also had one thing he had in his mind while performing. She'd asked him what was in his mind back then, and he told her that it was her. She did not say anything at first, but mumbled to herself that she might not be here to help him always. Kuzi and Kori had started practicing for their performance for the gala night, which was coming soon. Kuzi, for some reason, was not paying attention to his playing and got horribly reprimanded by Kori. She asked why he was being so airheaded. He told her that the score, Love's Sorrow, she had picked up was not glamorous enough for their performance. Since they were going to perform at a gala night, they should have chosen something more extravagant. She'd asked him the reason why he was being so nitpicky about this score, since it was something she had picked up from his own music notes collection. He did not say anything to her, but there was a reason he was being avoidant towards this certain score. He always gets reminded of his mother when he plays this score. His mother's voice comes to tell him that the piano had abandoned him and would not respond to him anymore because it was his punishment. He told this to Sato, who told him that it was not punishment at all. The reason he could not listen to his own notes was due to a psychological trauma, which meant that he is not bound by his auditory senses. He could close his eyes, cover his ears, and still play like he always does without any trouble because of his muscle memory only. He was now able to see the music notes as an image, even though he could not hear them. If he imagined the scenes of music he has in his mind, he could play them off perfectly, conveying the adequate emotions. He told her that the score Corey had chosen was something that his mother always used to play and even sang it to him as a form of lullaby. He reeks of his mother, and he always gets reminded of her while playing it, smothering him. He asked her if his mother would hate him because he was trying so hard to forget about her. She told him that no mother ever hates their child. The day he told her those words was the day he grew up as a human and a pianist. There was no way his mother wouldn't have been happy for him, but it still hurts to see that their child was growing up and drifting away from them. But his mother never held him accountable for it. Whatever he had learned from her was a gift to him, given by his mother. Kuzi was dropping Corey back home after a long practice session and encountered her parents, whom she told him were great fans of him and used to watch his performances. They told him not to give up and keep playing, regardless of what other people think of him. After he went away, her parents made a remark saying that they finally met the Arima Kuzi. The practice session was still going on hard, and they all decided to blow off some steam by lighting fireworks after school near the pool. Sakigawa, a friend of Tsubaki's, asked Corey and Kuzi if they were going to go to a music college instead of high school. Corey said that she had not thought about that far of a future, and her only goal was to take the spotlight at the gala concert with Kuzi. Kuzi fell down at the pool while playing and thought that the light even reaches him even at the depths of water. The day of the concert was here, but Corey was late. They were trying to reach her phone, but she wasn't answering. Another contestant named Maki was annoyed at the fact that people at the hall were talking all about Corey. Igawa had come to see their performance as well, but without Corey, things were getting twisted. Sato tried to persuade Maki to let them perform after him, which he denied by saying that Corey was overrated and thought too highly of herself when she did not follow the music sheets at all. Kuzi apologized to him and told him that he could have the last performance, but the spotlight would be theirs. He went alone to the stage to perform. He knew that it was going to be tough on his own, but he was pissed at Maki and his comments about Corey and her music. He wanted to show him and everyone how great Corey and her music were. He wanted everybody to look at him and see how amazing he was and how even more amazing Corey was. He started playing with extreme vigor and anger in his body. He entranced the whole audience with his perfection, but there was still something wrong with his performance. His crude anger seeping through the keys was not the way he was supposed to convey the true feelings of lover's sorrow. Sato saw a determined and angry Kuzi playing the score that his mother loved so much. It was Sato who had first seen the potential Kuzi had to be a pianist. She saw that he was a genius and told his mother to make him a pianist. It was her burden that she had put him on that path, which eventually bore him so much pain. She remembered the day of the incident. She had scolded his mother for hitting Kuzi so much despite him trying so hard for her to make her happy. His mother told her that the reason she was so hard on him was that she did not have enough time. She doesn't have anything to leave behind for him. The only thing she could do was make sure he was a successful musician who could play with the utmost level of perfection. She wanted to make sure he could make a livelihood for himself after she died, make a name for himself, and have a purpose in life. She was scared that he would be left alone without anything to grab onto, and she was mad at herself for being a bad mother who couldn't leave behind anything for him. Even until her last moment, all she could think about was Kuzi. After her death, Kuzi was hit with the shock and lost his ability to hear his music. Sato thought that music was hurting Kuzi and thought her being beside him would hurt him even more. But after 2 years, when she saw him finally returning, she was sobbing with happiness. She learned that he had found someone who took him out of the depths of his darkness. Kuzi was slowly losing his ability to hear his music notes and realized that he had been playing the piece in a wrong way. Even though he could not hear it anymore, he could feel the vibrations that hit his soul. He realized how strongly he was pressing the keys and notes. That was not how he had always heard his mother play Lover's Sorrow. He remembered the way his mother told him to caress the piano keys like he was caressing the head of a kid, soft and soundly making the piano dance to his tunes. He changed his style and played it the way he had always known. He remembered his mother teaching him everything hand by hand. He had once asked his mother why she always played this piece for him, and she had told him that she wanted him to get used to sorrow. He'd once again got the heart of his audience. He thought that he was playing this for his mother and hoped that it reached her. The spirit he saw was something he had created for himself, an excuse to run away from everything, but now he knew that his mother was inside of him as a beautiful memory. He ended his performance with perfect grace and satisfaction, creating an uproar in the audience. After he got out of the stage, he collapsed due to shivering in his body. He asked Seto if his music reached his mother, and she embraced him, saying he did it perfectly, just like his mother loved it. And finally, he bid his mother farewell and told her that everything he had learned, every little bit of him, his playing, his eating habits, all was something he had picked up from his mother. He was a part of his mother, and she lived inside of him, always cheering him on. Maki was also moved after seeing his performance and played his violin for his mother, thinking that just like Kusi, his own feelings would reach his loved one. Tsubaki was surprised to see the new and confident Kusi and felt tears drumming in her heart. Seto met Kagawa's mentor, Okai-san, to talk about Kusi, who had finally let go of a heavy baggage from his heart. She told her that his mother's death was tragic for them, but was it really necessary for the musician Kusi? His skills stemmed from sorrow and thrived after sorrow. The upgrade he had was due to facing his sorrow, and she feared what more he has to lose to stay on this path. Kusi was at school, and he got to know that Cory was admitted to the hospital and rushed to see her. Kusi went to the music room hoping to see Cory there as usual, but like every day, he did not find her there. He was playing the piano, thinking about her, when Tsubaki came and told him that Cory had collapsed and was admitted to the hospital. He'd rushed to the hospital, and when he entered the room, he felt that it was not Cory, but his mother sitting in the hospital bed. She apologized for not being able to say anything to him before and had to ditch the performance. He wanted to ask her a lot of questions. He asked her that she'd already collapsed once before and had to undergo a list of tests. Now she was under the tests again. She told him that it was due to working herself too hard. She was already a little weak, and these tests were just new ones that doctors had prescribed her. Other than that, she was totally fine. He came back the next day with Watari and Tsubaki. He wanted to ask her if she was speaking the truth about her tests, if she was truly going to be all right, and come back to school. He was worried that she would suddenly say that he would not come back to school anymore and they would never be able to meet at the music room together and practice. But all these questions were something he could not ask at that time despite Cory behaving as her usual cheerful self. His eyes were always going to inspect her body to find any source of truth in her words. Tsubaki told Sakigawa that she was going out with Sato, which surprised her. She asked her if she liked Sato, and she answered that she didn't dislike him. Sakigawa was not satisfied with her half-hearted answer and asked what she was going to do about Kusi. Tsubaki was nervous to hear this and told him that there was nothing romantic between her and Kusi. He was just like a little brother to her, but Sakigawa knew why she was saying this. She was running away from her feelings. She was scared to admit her own feelings because she feared that her feelings would ruin the relationship between them and she would lose her friend forever. Tsubaki was always close with Kusi since their birth, but soon Kusi started getting busy with his piano practice, and despite her calling him every time to play with her, he would turn her down because of his practice. Even while she played alone, she thought about Kusi and made mud balls for him too. She was always told by her parents to play moderately with him because she was a pianist and couldn't afford to get hurt. Soon as she started to hate music because it was taking Kusi away from her. Kusi went to see Cory, who praised him for his piano performance at the gala. He told her that he decided to play alone rather than coming out was because someone had insulted her. When he played, he could feel the smell, touch, and the sound of his mother, turning it into the lights that guided him throughout the performance. She told him that he had truly become a musician. He still had those questions in his mind which were eating him away. He wanted to ask her if she was truly fine and wouldn't leave him behind just like his mother. But in the end, he couldn't ask any of them. Sakigawa talked to Watari about Tsubaki, and he told her that Tsubaki herself has to realize what she truly feels and wants. She needed to realize that the one standing beside her was not her younger brother. Sakigawa feared that it might be too late for her friend until she realized. Tsubaki went out with Sato, but always ended up talking about Kusi. She thought about what Kusi was to her if not her little brother. Sakigawa called Tsubaki and told her that liking someone and not disliking someone had a major difference, and she needed to know what she truly feels towards Kusi. She had already called Kusi to comfort Tsubaki, making an excuse that Tsubaki was sick. They walked in the sea together like old times, and she realized how much Kusi had grown up and changed since then. Kuzi told her that he was going to have to leave because he was planning on attending a high school with a music major. Tsubaki could not stop her tears and ran away from there, thinking that once again, music was taking Kuzi away from her. Kuzi and Tsubaki were inseparable from their childhood. She took care of him, thinking of him as a high-maintenance younger brother who was smaller than her. Even when he started to learn piano and was always busy with his practice, she made sure to make two of everything while she played, in hopes of giving him the same enjoyment she got from playing. But somehow, she was always left behind. After running away from him the previous day, she hadn't talked to Kuzi. At school, she heard Kuzi talking to his teacher about his decision to enroll in a music high school. But he knew that for the admission into the school, he needed to have record wins in multiple competitions and had to have a mentor. He did not qualify on both, and it was a high possibility that he had to go abroad to pursue music. Tsubaki was heartbroken once again, knowing that music was taking away Kuzi from her again. Even after Tsubaki's extreme reaction to his revelation, Kuzi was behaving as if nothing had happened between them. Saito understood that Tsubaki was not happy with him, and her feelings lay in a different place. He told her that he likes another girl who was totally different from him. Even though they both had many similarities in their likes and behaviors, he could see that she was uncomfortable with him. He always noticed when she laughed with him, not knowing what to say. He wanted her to be happy and realize her own feelings. She cried and apologized to him, stating that it was all her fault because she didn't know her own feelings. At night, she went to Kuzi, who was still at school, playing the piano in the music room. She sat beside him and cried, saying that she was dumped because of her mistake. It was her fault that she could not realize her feelings and ended up hurting the other person when he tried nothing but to accommodate her feelings. She thought to herself that the person she was sitting beside was the person she had indirectly indicated her feelings to. He was the person she wanted to stay beside forever, but the person was going away from her again, and she blamed music for that. She nagged at him, saying that he was a bad friend for not consoling the crying girl, keeping on to play the piano only. He smiled at her, saying that he would always stay beside her, but the truth was different in Tsubaki's mind because she knew he was going to leave. Kuzi went to see Kori the next day, but saw many bad omens before he could even enter the hospital. His already nervous self was convinced that it was best not to meet Kori for now, and walked away, but troubles did not leave his way, and turned out the troubles he had to face were not a coincidence at all. It was done by a girl, and the girl in question jumped from the tree at him, losing her consciousness. Kuzi brought her home to Seto, and she told them that her name was Naji. She was a junior music school student and wanted to learn from Seto. She wanted Seto to teach her, so Seto asked her to play something for them. Impressed with her piano skills, she told Kuzi to teach her from then. Kuzi went to see Kori again, taking some sweets for her from her father's shop, but walked away when he heard her laughing and talking with Watari. On his way back, Kori called him and scolded him for not coming to see her at all. She told him to bring some sweets for her from her father's shop, making Kuzi happy. Kori was walking in the hospital and suddenly she lost the senses in her legs and fell down. She cried and beat herself to move, but it was of no use. At the day of the gala concert, Kori was looking at her music sheets and preparing for the performance when she suddenly lost the sensations in her legs and fell down, hurting her head. She nervously glanced at her legs and lost consciousness soon after, and eventually, she could also feel that the tremor in her hands was becoming more and more visible. Kuzi was teaching Naji, his new student, and giving her pointers to straighten her postures and move her words properly to play the piano. His strict and immaculate guidance was annoying Naji, who hated him and begrudgingly noticed that he was really good at what he does. Kuzi was supposed to visit Kori that day with her favorite sweets, but found her already standing outside the school. She told him that she had forgotten about him because he did not care to visit her at the hospital at all. She was there for Watari, but in the end she forgave Kuzi, telling him that he could be her substitute for the day. She took him with her and indulged in a shopping spree while Kuzi had to bear the burden of her playing around. They found a little girl who was lost and found her mother. Kori told him that they can't help but seek their parents in times of need. They can't bear to disappoint their parents. She told him all that with a sad smile on her face. She told him that she had left her bag at the school when Kuzi asked about it, and they both went to retrieve it. For a while, they both thought that it was a nice day that they had spent together and wanted the time to stop for them. The sky was shining with stars while Kori clenched Kuzi and cried her eyes out. He did not ask the reason why she was crying and gave her silent support. Kori told him that she had lied about her bag. She was only let out of the hospital for today and had to go back again. Kuzi apologized because she had to spend her day off with him instead of Watari, but she told him that it was fine because she had a great day with him. Seto asked Naji why she was after Kuzi, but Naji pretended to be innocent. She told Naji that she didn't know about the intentions, but if she tried to go after him, she would kill her, making her intentions clear. It was out in the open that for some reason, Naji disliked Kusi and wanted to destroy him. After getting reprimanded by Kusi over and over again, Naji got angry and ran away. Seto told Kusi to go after her. He apologized to her. She told him that she idolized someone and that person was the reason she wanted to play the piano. But that person was obsessed with someone else and was in a dark place due to it. She wanted him to see her. She'd asked if he had someone he liked. He told her that it didn't matter as that girl liked his friend. For Kusi, Corey was like the breeze that took him out of his misery and showed him the way to music once again. Naji wanted to sabotage Kusi and hated him, but at that moment, she couldn't help but think that they were quite similar. After she went home, it was revealed that the person she admired was no other than Aiza, who was her older brother. Corey was angry to know that Kuzi was teaching a girl, losing his time to practice. She shouted at him and kept saying how she should stop wasting time and practice more because the competition was nearing. She realized that she was behaving irrationally and cried. Kusi, who knew that this was not how Corey was, saw the similarities of behavior of his mother in her. He could not help but realize that something was seriously wrong. She was telling him that she was sorry for behaving in such a way. She was just too overwhelmed. Suddenly, she asked him if he wanted to commit double suicide with him, but the next moment, she said that she was just joking. She continued, saying that he was a good pianist and a true musician. He could do whatever he wanted to, and she had no business in saying such things. After all, a violinist who couldn't even hold her own bow was pretty much useless. She said that it would have been better if they had not met at all. Kusi just stood still and could not say anything to her. He could only see and feel his mother sitting in the bed instead of Corey. It was the past repeating itself again, and after such a long time. He was finally getting out of his cage, but a new obstacle, a new pain, was waiting for him at the threshold. Kusi did not know what to do and fell into a state of despair. Tsubaki asked him if he was sick, but he just simply nodded that he was fine. She told him that they all should go to see Corey together since they hadn't gone to see her in a long time. He told her that he wouldn't go. Sakigawa asked Tsubaki what she was going to do with her newfound feelings for Kusi. She told her that there was nothing she could do. She only hated the thought of music taking him away from her. Sakigawa knew that it wasn't true, as Tsubaki was working and studying very hard. She'd already applied to a high school that was near the music school Kusi wanted to go to. She told her to face her true feelings and tell it to Kusi. Tsubaki was still scared that her feelings would ruin their relationship and only wanted to be by his side. She wanted the time to stop, but it seemed that time had only stopped for her. She wanted him to be happy and couldn't help but admit that she had felt a sense of relief when he had refused to go with them. Kusi could not focus on his playing at all and ran away from the room. Naji sensed that he was feeling sad and tried to comfort him. He was thankful to her, but Naji knew that it was only an attempt to achieve self-satisfaction because she did not know how to help her own brother. Kusi was sick of the sound of the piano and hoped that he could stop hearing it all. Watari noticed how bothered he was, and he told him to go meet Corey as it was the only thing that would help him. He told him not to give up on her, and Kusi finally saw the frustration of not being able to say anything to her that day. He went to meet her. One look at him, and she knew that he was feeling sad. She told him to cheer up and pushed the reset button, forgetting what had happened. He got angry at her words and left, but he now knew what to do. He went to Naji and requested her to let him play with her during her school festival. After Naji agreed, they started practicing with great vigor. Naji was feeling pressured and scared because she wanted to surprise her brother. Seto helped her and said that everybody gets scared, along with Aiza, Kusi, and even herself. What's important was that she performs from her heart. On the day of the performance, Kusi saw that Naji was shivering. He held her hands, which showed her that Kusi himself was scared. He told her what Corey had told him once upon a time. It was important to know who they were planning for and play their music with utmost sincerity, regardless of their fear. Naji felt relief wash over her, and they both got ready to enter the stage. Naji had asked Kusi why he wanted to perform at her school festival. He had told her that he had a horrible friend who had lost her way, and he wanted to knock some sense into her with his performance. Naji and Kusi entered the stage, shocking people. They were surprised by the prodigal return of Kusi, who was now going to perform with Naji. Kusi had already told Watari to call Corey when they would start performing to make sure that she heard this performance that he was going to give for her. Corey was always the one who had helped him to come back to the surface when he thought he was going to get trapped underground or drown in the misery of sorrow he had made for himself. But this time, it was going to be him who was going to get Corey out of her misery. He was going to make sure that Corey doesn't forget why she played in the first place. It was to make sure that their music reached the people and touched their souls. He wouldn't let her stop without making her dream come true, just like she had done for him. They started performing with perfect notations and tempo, letting people know how skilled Naji had become under Kuzi's guidance. Everybody's eyes were on them, but Kuzi wasn't focusing on his performance because he did not need to. He could play the piece with his eyes closed because the notes were engraved in his mind. He could still hear the notes, and suddenly he changed his pace and tempo. He played with faster speed with perfect tone and increased tempo, making people see who the real Kuzi Arima was and his superior skills. Naji was startled to see his change of style because she was not used to playing like him, nor had they practiced like this before. It was like Kuzi was putting pressure on her to outdo herself. He was gathering all the spotlight, but Naji would not let that happen because she remembered his words saying that she needed to play for someone else. She knew who she was playing for, and she needed Aiza to see her conveying her feelings to him. 2 months ago, she wouldn't have been able to play like this, but she had been taught by the great Kuzi himself, and she knew that he was not the steel-hearted man Aiza had thought him to be. He was warm and filled with knowledge. The time she had spent with him was filled with nostalgia, and she knew exactly how to receive his new style. She also increased her tempo according to him, answering to all his lauding. He was calling on her to outdo herself in every way, challenging her own skills to discover her true potential. Everyone was surprised to see her keeping up with Kuzi. Corey, who was also hearing their performance, got up, wanting to perform with them too. Finally, the performance ended with the audience erupting in praises. Kuzi told her to get up and receive the pleasure that every musician thrives for. She got up and saw that her music had reached every one of their souls. She was not like Aiza or Kuzi, who wanted to dedicate their whole life to music. She did not want that, but she wanted this feeling to last forever. That's why she was pursuing music. She wanted her hero to see her and get out of his own darkness. Aiza came to see Naji and Kuzi after the performance, pissed off at Kuzi for performing with his little sister. Kuzi did not know that Naji was his little sister and was surprised to know it. Despite his initial agitation towards Kuzi, he told him to get ready for the competition coming in December because he was going to beat him to it. With his long strides, Naji noticed that her brother had come out of his cage, thriving to perform once again now. He was the same as his childhood, with dreams to conquer the world with music. Naji was proud that she was the student of the great Arima Kuzi. Seto also praised Kuzi for being a great teacher to Naji. He went to see Corey after his performance and found her singing to some kids at the hospital. She told him that she had heard his performance today. He told her to perform with him one last time at the upcoming competition. Corey, who had thought that she had done her last performance at the town hall, was having the courage to dream once again because of Kuzi, who had made her miss the violin once again. It was him who was saving her this time. With tears streaming down her eyes, she agreed to perform with him once again. Corey had agreed to perform with Kuzi at the final of the competition, and she talked with her doctor, saying that she was ready for the surgery even though it could be risky. She wanted to take the risk because she did not care how little bit of time it might give her, but she had someone waiting on her promise. She wanted to hold the bit of hope that Kuzi had extended towards her. She did not want to disappoint her parents or her friends by giving up. She would try her best. Kuzi had come to visit Corey and saw that she was trying her best at rehabilitation. She wanted to be able to stand on the stage and perform with him. She needed to regain her strength back because she could not forget the light Kuzi had brought with him. She wanted to touch the light with her hands, standing on her own legs. Her parents thanked Kuzi because it was all due to him that Corey was able to find her inner strength and tried her best to catch up with him. Tsubaki had worked hard for the past few days, trying her best to beat the odds and get into the high school near Kuzi's music academy. She had done very well in her mock exams, but was worried that Kuzi was going to get left behind due to his practice. Sakigawa told her that what Kuzi was doing was his study for the entrance because the music college he wanted to get into wanted achievements and wins in competitions rather than grades. He was already lagging far because of his 2-year gap, but the competition he was preparing for could be the only thing that would surely get him admitted. She told Tsubaki that she should support him and take some midnight snacks to him while he practiced. She went to his house at night and saw him practicing to the verge of passing out. She told him that he looked crappy and needed a haircut. She took matters into her own hands and cut his hair because that was the only way she could support him. Kuzi told her that he would surely make her proud. The competition had started with the preliminary levels opening. Kuzi had surprisingly gotten along well with Egawa and Aiza, despite their last history. Aiza gave the first performance, and with his performance today, he knew that he needed to leave his childish rivalry behind. He had regarded Kuzi as his hero, but he needed to bid his hero farewell because he needed to see the real world and grow up. Egawa and Kuzi had already grown up and knew what their journey was about, and he also needed to do the same. He put his everything into his performance, telling everyone that he didn't want to be Kuzi Arima anymore. He was Aiza, who had made his place among Kuzi and Egawa. With his amazing performance ending, he bid his old childishness farewell and embraced his new friends that he had acquired. Kuzi had cleared the prelims at the competition and had gone to visit Cory along with Watari. He wanted to say a lot of things to Cory, but seeing her happily laughing and talking to Watari, he could only think of the fact that Cory likes his best friend, not him but Watari. He was just an accompanist, a substitute for Watari, and just a friend. He could not bear to sit any longer and left with the heavy feelings gnawing at his chest. Tsubaki was happy that she had passed her mock entrance exam, and Kuzi had also passed the first level of competition, which would help him to get admitted into his desired music college. She remembered the time from her childhood when she had gotten sick, despite her rough and strong nature, and Kuzi was the only one who had not made fun of her being a sick gorilla. He had always acknowledged her as a girl and brought her juice whenever she felt down. She went to see Kuzi and asked him if he would like to go see Cory with her. He agreed to go with her, but when he saw Watari was also on his way to see her, he changed his plans, telling Tsubaki that it would be best for them not to disturb them right now. Tsubaki knew what Kuzi was feeling. They were waiting for the rain to stop when she told him that he was not okay with Watari being with Cory. He hated every minute of it because he liked Cory. Kuzi was shocked to hear this and kept quiet. She told him that he possibly did not have any chance in front of Watari, who was a total chick magnet. Kuzi also agreed to this, but the next thing that came out of her mouth stilled him in his place. She had told him that the only chance he had was with her. Kuzi looked at her with surprise, but she did not stay there and ran away, thinking that she had made the first move and conveyed her feelings to him. She avoided Kuzi the next day, and Kuzi, who was so shocked from the incident yesterday, thought to himself that Tsubaki must have been joking or playing along with him. He wanted to go and see Cory, but she had called him to say that he did not need to come and should focus on his practice due to the competition nearing. He was sad to hear that because he really wanted to see her. Cory called him again, telling him to look at the sky with her, filling him with her gentle warmth again. Stray Cat came and nudged him with his body, making him happy. She spoke out that he really wanted to see her and would come the next day. He was on his way to see Cory along with Watari and told him that he liked her. Watari, who already knew this, supported his friend. But when they reached her room, they saw that Cory was in bad condition, which reminded Kuzi of his mother. He ran out of there only to see the stray cat from yesterday getting run over by a car. He took the cat to the vet, but unfortunately the cat couldn't be saved. He was washing his bloodied hands and thought of Cory, breaking down in tears. Tsubaki learned from Watari that Cory had collapsed and was in the ICU. She was worried about her and asked if they would be able to see her again. Watari's solemn look gave her an answer filled with uncertainty. She knew that Kuzi was there to watch it all unravel and knew he was in a bad state. She went to Seto requesting her to save Kosi. They'd all tried to call him, but to no avail. Seto went to his home and found him cooped up in his room, just like from the past. She could not let the past repeat itself and tells him that he needed to practice because the competition was just at hand. He told her that he couldn't do it, making Seto worry even more. At school, he found a note from Cory, which was left by Watari for him. He saw the note, and it said to bring her sweets that he had promised. He went to the hospital and found her on her bed. She told him that she was okay now and asked him to take her to the roof. He took her to the roof after her request and hoped the now had become forever to be able to see Cory all fine and kicking her sickness. But there was also dread working in his heart. She asked him to start practicing, but he said that he couldn't do it. He had not played for a week and he couldn't play in this mental state. He had played for his mother in the past, hoping that it would get her well, but music took away his loved ones. He was fearful that it would once again take his loved one away. She told him that he had her. He was looking down once again, and she did not like that. The reason she was fighting so hard to live to be able to stand once again was all because of him. He was the reason she was desperately clinging on to the times they had spent together. She told him that she was going to give her best and have the operation on the same day of his performance. She stood up on her feet and showed him that she was still a musician and he had to play because he was also a musician. Miracles do happen, and he was hers. She fell down and told him that she was jealous of Tsubaki because she knows more about him than her. She liked everything about him, from his every small habit to his favorite egg sandwich. She was scared too and cried in his arms. He knew that it was going to be tough, but he was going to play for her. He had all those people in his life making his life better and fuller. He was not going to give up and remembered the words Cory had always told him to look up in times of dire trouble. He played the symphony with a rich tone and great precision. The emotions that he emitted were turning into music, making it so colorful yet filled with sorrow. The color of his music was dark yet soft, which brought tears to everyone's eyes. Kuzi could not stop playing because he had his loved ones with him. They are the ones who had gifted him with music. His mother had gifted him with his piano. His loyal friends had supported him with the music of life. With Naji, he had created a new symphony, and the others had also supported him in his path whenever he had stumbled in his way. Most of all, the person who had taken him out of his soundless cage and enabled him to listen to the music again was Corey. He had to keep playing because she had asked him not to leave her alone. He had promised her that he would never leave her alone because they existed in each other's heart. The music he was playing right now was the proof that he wouldn't let her be alone in the operation theater. His music was going to keep her company and never let her be alone. He played so that he could reach her heart. Her words kept playing in his mind, and he turned it into the sounds that pierced everyone's heart. He could see her standing next to him and playing the violin with his piano. Together, they created an entrancing monochord. She was slowly fading away from his vision. He wanted to stop her, but she gave him the last hope and vanished in front of his eyes. He ended his performance with tears in his eyes, knowing that it was time to say goodbye. Corey was no more and had left him a last letter to read. She had first seen him at his first performance when they were both 5 years old. She had fallen for his music that very day, pursuing the violin because she wanted to play with him one day. She did not know how to approach him, and amidst all of that, she fell sick one day. She knew that she was not going to live long, so she decided to leave all her regrets behind. She took the help of a lie that she liked Watari to stay near him. She had hoped that she could make a place in his heart. Kusei thought that she had barged into his heart like the impending spring. She told him not to forget her, and that she loved him even before he did. She had left behind a picture of them both from their childhood as her last gift. Tsubaki came to him and said that he should never think that he's alone because she would stay with him forever and ever as his guardian angel. Kuzi looked at the sky and relished the spring air that had finally come.